You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Red Moon Podcast, live every single Tuesday night, right here on all your favorite social media platforms. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host, Sean Sebastian, and a person inside of a meat robot. I'm a human being. Beans are good.
Are you a he-him person or a...
I am a soul
She-her.
inside of a flesh puppet.
Oh,
That's a real...
I want to be your master of puppets then.
The Lord is my master,
Well,
which is true.
yeah. Okay.
Whether I'm saying it in a mocking manner or not, it's true.
Like, you are going to hell.
In my God,
You
I just said he
soulless
was my master.
meat puppet. No. You talking about?
I didn't say I was a
Dark
soulless
Lord?
meat puppet. I said I was a soul inside of a meat puppet.
That's true. That's true. Are you just saying your body doesn't matter? You can do whatever you want with it, since it's just a meat puppet.
It's just a meat puppet.
It's just a thing of flesh.
Wow, you are straight
just-
up there with the rest
You
of the
just,
yahoos
if you want
of
to,
today.
cut on it, go
Just saying.
ahead.
Cut on it. Just
That's
like
it.
If you cut me, will I bleed?
Crimes of the Future.
Yes.
Need one of them chairs.
That movie.
That was
Help me digest.
terrible. Terrible movie. And it got like a 15 or 20 minute standing ovation.
No, that movie.
That's a crime.
That's something we should watch at the lake. Like, why do we not watch that?
I don't know why.
Could you
Maybe
imagine?
because we don't want to relive. I mean, I would.
Probably
I
would
watch,
get bored and be like, okay, we're done with this.
Yeah. It's not as good as we just turn on the
You
room
might.
again.
We might find meaning or something in it. Like,
You know, maybe there's some movies like that.
Like if you turn it upside
Like
down.
Arrival.
I'm disappointed. Oh gosh,
That's
I
on
had to bring
Netflix
that
right
up.
now.
Yeah.
It's like in the top 10 on Netflix
Oh,
or
is it?
whatever. Yeah.
I'm willing to rewatch it again, just so I can say how much it
Yeah.
sucks again.
I watched Annihilation
Oh yeah.
again.
Yeah.
We didn't like it the first time.
No,
we saw
it's terrible.
Oh, do you still not like it?
Well, I
then?
still don't like it.
Okay.
I remember
But there's-
watching it. I
there
don't
is-
think Brandon. Did you see that? I
I
don't mean
didn't.
Sean went and saw it.
I wasn't able to see it.
There's a great scene in that movie where this freaking alien bear comes into the room and it
Oh,
screams
yes.
like the woman that it ate,
And it
is
talks like her. It is.
terrifying.
It's terrifying.
Dude.
No,
But
that-
the rest of the movie
It's
sucks.
like
That sounds interesting.
It's freaking terrifying.
Well, that's
Yeah.
the thing is like it could have been a good movie. Like
Yeah.
the creature itself and the premise around it is like creepy, but
Yeah.
the rest
Yeah.
of the movie sucks.
I don't know. Maybe I need to watch it. Did it just pop up on Netflix? Because I've heard. I don't know why.
It's been on there recently. And I
Okay.
just like
I've just heard a lot of buzz about it.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I thought we
Maybe it's just-
reviewed it a
We did.
long time ago.
It was so weird.
We reviewed
But
it when it came out.
It's one of them girl power movies. It's not
Oh.
good.
It's got
but that one scene just
2018
freaked me out.
Man, I
It's
forgot
been
how long
that
ago
long?
it was. Yes.
Wow. I don't know why it seems like it hasn't been that long.
It was
But it was
not a
not.
Jupiter Ascending where I watched it the second time and loved it.
I still will fight you on that one too. That and
That's right.
Arrival.
Yeah.
Although I think Keith will have my back on Jupiter Ascending.
Yeah.
I haven't rewatched it. I mean, I don't think it's going to be good again, but I need. I agree with you, but I mean, I don't know.
That one is
I
one-
need to rewatch it. I guess
It was.
I would
I'm not
watch
saying it was
again.
great. It was very
Entertaining.
the
That's
second
one
time.
I would watch again at the lake.
Jupiter
yeah.
Ascending.
I think
Yeah.
that one would be the one to watch at the lake.
Not Annihilation.
Not
No.
Annihilation.
Now I am
Or-
disappointed I didn't finish Legend. I saw
Oh,
that
yeah.
on one of your all's.
Oh, it's
Plex
still
theaters.
on
it's
Plex.
still on there.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I need to finish that.
Yeah.
It's
Because
good.
the production value is
For-
phenomenal.
I mean, for its time, it's good.
Yeah.
You know,
And Tom Cruise, I'll never get over. What is that part where he says
just drops out of the
something?
tree?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was that
Like
alone.
Spider-Man.
It was pretty bad, and he's
Yeah.
just so like young looking.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh, soft skin. Tom Cruise, those were great.
Soft
was like,
skin,
where are we-
beautiful teeth.
Where are we going with this?
No, his teeth were messed up even more when he was younger.
Long flowing locks of hair.
Mm,
He's
yeah.
just those eyes are so mesmerizing. You could just tell he was going to be a star. Just that's it. That's
Yep.
it. But
From
no,
that one movie alone.
That one movie alone. He was going to be a legend.
Yeah.
We got a great show in store. We actually bypassed the theater this week, revisited a film that came out a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Which I think, and you say it in your review, it's kind of it's a precursor to Halloween season coming up.
Yeah.
We could have went and saw the big movie at the box office this past week. Was it Equalizer 3?
Yeah.
We opted out simply because we hadn't seen. I think maybe Sean, you've seen the other two.
I've seen them, but not recently.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I haven't seen any of them.
Me neither.
I'm
They have a fan base. Like I'm
Yeah.
interested in watching them, honestly.
well, and I like Denzel. And truth be told,
What's Antoine Fuqua as well as the director, and that's who did Training Day, and
Yeah.
So I mean, I understand the appeal. I just have never checked them out.
not to mention, I will say it's one of those that I would want to give it its due time instead of trying to cram it all into 1 week before we go see it.
Yeah.
But its popularity at the box office obviously not only made it number one, it completely butchered Blue Beetle's first weekend take. So I think it's pretty hilarious.
Blue Beetle butchered its own.
True. And
Yeah.
it's now, Sean, you sent us that lovely screenshot of it being...
500 theaters dropping it.
555 theaters dropped it.
Yeah, it's not going to be making much more money. So
Well, and on par with the fact that 1,000 theaters dropped The Flash right after it launched, and
Yeah.
then like 700 or something dropped Shazam back when it came out. I mean, DC is James Gunn is
and you
not
can't
having
blame
a
the
good time
theaters.
over
I mean,
there.
if the movie's not making money, they need movies that draw people in. So why keep a movie that no one's going to see when you could put a movie more people want to see in more theaters?
Yeah.
It's like, go where the money is.
Absolutely, it's like we'll just throw Barbie back in there.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, I mean, there's so many
it's
movies
now
out
releasing
now.
on oh gosh, I think today is
Yeah,
when it came
yeah,
out on
I gotta- I
video
gotta-
on demand.
It's been available before that.
Yeah.
But
Well-
officially, I think was today.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
Because I got that, Ninja Turtles, The Boogeyman, the one we just watched, Voyage
Well,
of the
I was
Last
saying,
Demeter.
The
Yeah.
Voyage of the Last Demeter, which is the one we actually reviewed, came out back on August 11th, and the interesting thing is that it dropped on video on demand this week. It's
Yeah.
probably came out. We questioned why did this release at the time, same as we questioned
Mansion.
Haunted Mansion. Like, why wouldn't it really release closer to Halloween?
Yeah.
But as you can see, these video on demands are trying to pick up steam so that you can get ready for the Halloween season.
I think they're trying to the theater. They don't care so much with, especially ones like this one where I think they kind of knew it wasn't going to be like a huge breakout hit. So I think they're positioning certain movies like that so that they're available on streaming during Halloween instead of competing with the bigger releases like The Exorcist or Saw. Even though neither of those movies are ones we're particularly excited about, they are still big names.
No doubt. And obviously, we are probably going to end up reviewing those. We're also taking a different turn and not reviewing another movie coming out next week in theaters because I don't think there is a major one.
There's two, remember?
What? What?
My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3.
Oh, I forgot about that
Or The
one.
Nun 2.
No.
Oh, man, never mind.
Can't you believe both of those movies are just, you can't miss either one of those.
I got to catch the third, My Big Fat Greek Wedding over the Equalizer 3.
Yeah.
If you're going to go see a third movie, it's that one.
It's that one.
No doubt.
No doubt.
You're right.
Everybody was
Forgot.
screaming they
No
had to
doubt.
have a third My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
We needed it. Couldn't live
And then
without
the Conjuring
There's not
franchise
enough
is just
fat Greek weddings.
there's
in my
not.
opinion.
There's not.
Nope.
And then of course the Conjuring franchise at this point is not going to die. They're just going to milk it until no one cares anymore.
Well,
so.
they can't.
Don't
they
they-
can't die. People could just keep conjuring
Yeah.
it back up.
Ho, ho.
No, so
But no, isn't Vera Farmiga and what's his name?
well the nun
Patrick Wilson. Is that who it is that's in those?
they're in the Conjuring, but the spin-offs don't have them in it. So the nun
Wilson does. Wilson is in the latest one, isn't he?
No, that's Insidious.
oh.
He was in the original Insidious, and
Yeah.
he came back for the last one.
Okay.
We didn't review that either because we don't
was-
review garbage horror
Is he
movies.
also in The Conjuring?
We do.
Am I mistaking him?
yeah,
with
he's
someone?
he's in the Conjuring.
Okay, so they're out. They're no longer a part of that series, right?
Maybe.
The last one, I guess, was their last foray into
We don't
it.
know. They might make more because they're still making the spin-offs. They've talked about making a fourth Conjuring. So,
Oh gosh.
I mean, James Wan's not actively directing them anymore. He just
It wouldn't
produces.
matter.
So, but
They're
I
still
mean,
alive, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
real people.
I think
that
one
the
of them
movies-
is. I think one of them has already passed. I
Okay.
think the male did, but I'm not quite sure.
The male?
I don't know his name.
We've prolonged this long enough.
Yeah, we have.
We can look that up when we get into our review.
I'm doing it.
But you'll find out from our review maybe why we're talking about other things. Here is our review of The Last Voyage.
Ed. His name was Ed. I had to get it in before the review.
The Last Voyage
of Ed.
His name was Ed.
Labor Day weekend has passed, school is back in session, and we have entered the final days of summer. Fall is on the horizon and spooky season around the corner. Already, stores have begun to stock for Halloween, and even our local spirit shop has been open for a few weeks now. While it is still too early to begin our annual Halloween reviews just yet, September isn't shaping out to be a month full of major nor compelling releases. Add to this the strikes postponing big releases as well, we could see a rather dull rest of the year. So we instead have dipped our toes slightly into the fall spirit, with a recent release that came and went with very little fanfare, The Last Voyage of the Demeter. Directed by Andre Ovredal and written by Bragi Schutt Jr., the film was first conceived as far back as 1992, when, while working in a model shop, Schutt Jr. befriended a colleague who was currently working on the Francis Ford Coppola film Bram Stoker's Dracula. Fascinated with the model of the Demeter used in that movie, Schutt was inspired to make an alien-style horror film based on the chapter The Captain's Log from Bram Stoker's original novel Dracula. The film sat in development hell for decades, only seeing the light this year, where it failed to impress critics and at the box office. Starring Corey Hawkins as Clemens, a doctor who manages to get himself hired aboard the Demeter as a crew hand, the film, very much in the vein of Ridley Scott's Alien, takes place almost entirely on the Demeter itself, as an evil presence is aboard and the crew is picked off one by one. With solid production design and cinematography that makes great use of dark shots and the tight quarters aboard the ship, the movie is well made for its $45 million production cost. Performances from the main cast, such as Corey Hawkins and Liam Cunningham, who plays the ship's captain, are all fairly solid, with the majority of performances being better than one expects from a movie that flopped and critics hated. Where the film struggles, however, is in writing and originality. The story idea is definitely an interesting one, and while you can see its inspiration from Alien, it fails to be as scary. The set design and production value is good, and the atmosphere created on film effectively creepy, but the Demeter doesn't offer anything we haven't seen before from the Alien franchise or other vampire/monster films. Likewise, while the acting is generally decent, the characters themselves are all generic or stereotypical. There are good moments here and there, but I'm never made to care about most of the crew, who just serve as fodder to be picked off. The dialogue has no depth either, with characters often contemplating the nature of good and evil or else evoking religious themes, but having nothing intelligent to say about them. There are also a few aesthetic choices made with how Dracula is presented that, despite serviceable CGI, still come across as goofy looking due to directorial choices made, effectively destroying any tension present. The Last Voyage of the Demeter just comes across as forgettable all around. Maybe not as deserving of how much critics have chastised it, but while serviceable, it offers nothing new, and will not stand the test of time. If you're heavily into the Dracula mythos and are just looking to pass some time, it's alright, but I can think of better films to spend your time with. Overall, I give The Last Voyage of the Demeter 2 out of 4 stars. Oh, yeah!
Well, there's The Last Voyage of Ed. 2 out of 4 stars.
I didn't hate it. I being
a little cruel there.
Go listen to the review. There's plenty of things I said about it that aren't bad, but it's just very... I'll probably never watch it again. No one will ever remember it, and it'll just die in history.
Yeah.
It's just that generic and pointless. That's...
just like the rest of the crew.
You can see this whole movie in about 20 seconds at the beginning of Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah.
And then that just sums it up.
And it's just as entertaining.
The ship runs aground, the crew's dead, and Dracula's...
It kills me because seeing the trailer, and then again, I think the first 15 minutes, not even 15, it's about 10 minutes of the movie. Cinematography, the production value.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I'm like, this is actually, it looks pretty good. It looks like it's going to be a decent tale. I was expecting milquetoast, but I was like, maybe this actually is something I can recommend to somebody who would be into this kind of thing and say it throws in some little different twists here and there.
Yeah.
No, it's pretty generic. It's pretty milquetoast all the way throughout. Yeah. And the writing is bad in terms of just trying to be a product of that era. I liken it to certain things. whether you see the gritty nature in like the Pirates films or even the Count of Monte Cristo is a personal favorite.
Yeah.
And I think of it being around that same time period. And yet even just, I know that's based on a novel as well, but the delicacy that they take in terms of how they translate the book to a script and in terms of dialogue, it not only flows naturally, it sounds like a product of maybe those people would have spoken in that time.
Yeah.
This one just takes a terrible approach, and it's juvenile in the way they talk, but they're trying to mimic that style. And it takes you out in moments because you're like, I told Keith, one of the cringiest lines I think comes from the main captain, and literally the line is, he's like, "Please pass on that I was truest of true," or so. It was like, I was like, "What the hell?"
The truest of the truers.
Yeah, I'm like,
it's like, whoa.
Are you speaking gibberish,
Yeah.
man? I was like,
This isn't Game of Thrones, dude.
well, they just had so many moments where they were trying to be highbrow.
I was thinking it's funny. He was a ship
Oh, he's
captain
fantastic
in Game of Thrones. Like, he was a smuggler.
And I mean, his acting's not bad in this, but there's nothing to work with. Like, the dialogue's terrible. The story's not interesting. The most clever thing about it is the premise, and the idea that they took the Captain's Log chapter of the book Dracula and decided to make a whole movie about what happened. Like, everyone knows the ship shows up derelict. Like, there's no survivors from the book. So it's like, okay, well, what happened to the crew? And of course, you assume, reading the book, that Dracula killed them all. That makes sense. And I mean, so you already know the outcome, which is also something that kind of takes some of the suspense away. But if you're clever about how you do it, and you're still, because I mentioned the writer, Shoot Jr., had said part of the inspiration for the idea was like Alien, but instead of like this monster in space, it's Dracula on the boat. And it's like, you could have done something really scary like that, where a boat has tight quarters, especially at night in the rain. You have all these dark, tight quarters where you can have all these awesome shots of suspense and him slowly picking people off one by one. But I mean, every death happens on the top deck, like in the rain. I was like, every single person dies in the rain on board the top ship. There's no suspense. There's nothing really scary. So I was just like, I think it was poorly executed.
Well, Sean, you said it best. I think while we were in the review, it's predictable. It's like,
very,
from start to finish. I mean, I honestly thought halfway through the route they were going to take, because everybody ends up dead.
Right.
I thought when you see the opening shot of them coming up on the ship, there's one person who's looking at like the manifest and looking at the captain's log, and I'm sitting here thinking as the movie's going on, I'm like, oh wait, it's like this is going to flash back to when the ship wrecked. And that guy is Dracula in human form, because he's like consumed all the blood and the bodies on there, and they don't realize it at the moment.
I thought that too.
I was like, oh, this is going to be the twist that they take. And even that would have been predictable, but somewhat better. And like, no, there was one survivor, and it was Dracula, and he's fully himself now, and he's here to wreak havoc in England.
Yeah. Well, see, I thought in the story Dracula, I thought Renfield comes off the ship with him. I thought Renfield was with him as a servant the whole time, like from hundreds of years ago and stuff.
We'll see.
So I know he's in a psychiatric ward, but I thought he got put there after he
what they didn't
comes
make
off
clear,
the ship,
though, and I thought, and maybe this is part of the bigger story that I don't know. They make it sound like somebody's requesting the shipment, and the person's paying a pretty penny to get the shipment to England. I'm like. Is that Dracula?
Yeah,
Count
Dracula's
paying
himself to England.
Okay, I got you.
And then all the crates are like the Transylvanian soil, because he has to have that to sustain his power. Like, he has to sleep in the coffin with the soil around him. So
I thought that would have been cool too, if somehow they had showcased not only the soil.
Yeah, they only have one part at the beginning where they show that there's soil in the crates.
That's it. Yeah, and I'm like, I thought they were going to expand on that and show it like him not consuming it, but it like it turning into something and forming into like a body, I guess, of some sort, or I don't know.
Well,
I just thought it was
like having her as like this
snack.
Like he brought a snack with him, and I was like, because that's the point of the crew. Like, they even say he's like, oh, he's been rationing
them,
and that makes sense. That's the point, is he could pick them off one by one until he gets to London, where he has more food supply.
Yeah.
So it's like, so why did he need to bring a snack with him? Like, that's stupid. Like, because you're betting on her staying unconscious the entire trip, so that nobody realizes that this woman's been smuggled.
Well, he could have fed on her the whole time.
Yeah, he wouldn't have needed to,
and not killed everybody.
So like, that part just didn't make sense. It felt like it was only there so they can get a woman into the movie,
and also make her the
love interest, the main hero,
the victim, and the one that you kind of are seeking after in terms of her getting redemption. And I will say the one cool thing in terms of an aesthetic or a creative touch that I liked was once he's made them his victim, and at least partially sucked the blood out of them.
Yeah.
And they now are kind of like this lifeless zombie.
Yeah.
The sun, obviously the burning in the sunlight, I thought was a cool touch, especially with, I mean, I don't want to spoil too much, but a certain character that is thought to be dead, and they're going to give him a funeral, and then someone is taken aback by it, and they approach and they open up the shroud that he's in, and of course immediately the flesh starts burning and sends him over. And I thought that was there were certain scenes that were done well, which just made it all the more
disappointing
for the other scenes that didn't play out well, or at least they failed to live up to that potential. And that's honestly, that was the exact feeling I walked away with the movie, is it had so much potential and just failed to live up to it.
Like any other horror movie, it's one of those where there's so many bad decisions. And I think that, again, that goes into the writing, but it also, I guess it goes into the fact that they adapted it from that chapter of the book. So there's, they're making all of this up based on just a very few words, but at the same time, you have to have, ultimately the outcome has to be, like Keith said, it has to be the derelict ship, and everybody's got to die.
Right.
And so the way that they get from A to B, I felt like there's just so many. They could have burned the ship. They could have. I mean, it's like they even talked about maybe sinking the ship, and I'm like, the freaking thing's got wings, and you can see the land. They were close enough to see England. And I'm like, why couldn't he just fly there?
Yeah.
Like, why doesn't he? Why does he have to be on that ship until it comes aground? Like,
I don't understand that. Exactly, you're right. It's like, did he not have enough strength to get to shore at that point?
I don't know. But even if he did, it's like sink the freaking ship or catch it on fire.
They had to get there.
Yeah.
Oh, from the soil.
Yeah, he still had to have those delivered
there. Drag his crates up onto the deck in the sunlight.
But they never mentioned or used the crates for anything after pretty much.
They mentioned the plot of just him needing the soil, I guess, or at least alluding to that.
Well, I don't think they ever mention him needing the soil. I mean, it's in the novel, but they don't ever in the movie.
No, at the end, I thought the what's his name? The African American guy. What's his name?
The doctor.
The doctor.
I forgot the doc's name. I
thought he was going to end up being the Renfield character. I thought before they run aground, he'll get bit, and he's been the fighter against him the whole ship ride, and now at the very end he'll be turned into a servant, and then he'll be the one telling people to unload the ship and bring the coffins to this place. And
they would never
Carfax Abbey and all that.
Make that choice.
Well,
and they couldn't because he's the young, successful doctor that saved everybody on the ship. He's the one that gets away.
He didn't save anybody.
Well,
he's the first black doctor.
He survived, and basically is the one that
they make it. He's the first black doctor to finish school at that place or whatever.
Like, even when they allude to it at first, I'm like, okay, this isn't that bad. But then when they exasperate that, chance of just throwing it, like they just spoon feed it to you throughout the film, and you're like, really? This is the motivation? Like, we got to dilute it down to this point. And same with everybody else. I mean, the captain and, the relationship with his son is diluted. It's just like this very kind of milquetoast, like, oh, I love you because you're my son. But at the same time, I'm like, you don't ever see a connection with them. You don't see like this father-son moment that takes, steals your heart away. It's like the woman being the love interest. It's kind of like, when he throws her on the table and immediately starts to do a transfusion, and I'm like, whoa, like out of nowhere, like this is your diagnosis and you just immediately know because magically you're a doctor. It was just kind of, again, the writing was very, very poor. It wasn't well thought out. And it wasn't well conceived.
Which I'm not a doctor, obviously, but I didn't know that would work. That if it was an infection, just pumping clean blood into somebody is just going to contaminate the clean blood too.
I guess he assumed she was missing blood, but he never looked at anything. Like, how did he know?
He says by doing a transfusion, this will force the infection out.
Well, this is what I also didn't understand is I guess Dracula had the power to suck the blood out of her, but leave enough that she still was viable. That if he gave her blood of his own,
yeah,
and fulfilled that blood, she still is human and not like a
You don't turn
brainless
just because he
zombie.
takes blood out of you.
But okay, but
yeah, I
what,
thought if you got bit, you turned.
No, that he has to give blood too. You take the
Okay.
blood until you're almost dead, and then he cuts, and you have to drink his blood.
That's
and
right.
then you become
That's
a
right.
vampire.
I remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not.
But he
okay,
does
I
feed
totally
off
missed-
of the same women multiple times. Like in the Dracula novel, he can feed off of them more than once.
Jonathan Harker's
Yeah.
fiance is the main one in the
Yeah.
novel that Keanu Reeves in the Bram Stoker movie.
What's who?
I forget
It's,
who the actress that
it's
plays her.
the
Wilhelmina Harker or her.
no, it's the girl from Edward Scissorhands.
No, that's the name of the character. I don't remember
God dang.
Winona Ryder.
Winona Ryder
Is it
in
Winona
the
Ryder?
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
That was Keanu Reeves's.
I remember Keanu
wife
Reeves
in
and Anthony Hopkins. I just don't remember her being.
Yeah,
in
it was Winona Ryder.
And freaking what's his name is Dracula.
Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman.
I like that movie, but
Oh,
it's been
yeah.
years since
Well
I've
done.
seen it.
Yep.
It's aesthetically it's good. There's definitely obviously Keanu Reeves.
Oh, there's
is
Keanu Reeves is
pretty
terrible.
bad.
He's absolutely terrible. There are definitely bad
like,
things about it, but
yeah.
Vampire.
But no, I the biggest way to sum up Last Voyage of the Demeter is just disappointing.
it's that.
It really could have been something aesthetically. It's pleasing in certain parts. The production value's there. The cinematography is there, but it just really fell flat on making you care for these characters.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm just like, for there to have been Renfield early in the year with the comedy kind of way of bringing it into the, normal, modern day, and then this version of trying to go back to a classic style. You could see Universal trying to just throw whatever at the wall
Yeah.
to really revisit some of these
Yep.
older classic monster flicks. And I'm like, just do the tried and true. Like, return to the original. Make another Dracula movie in the vein of what is it? Was it Kubrick or Coppola? Coppola did
made Bram Stoker.
Bram
yeah.
Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah.
And I'm like, at least do something in that, like someone who's going to take it seriously.
Yeah.
Again, what Gore Verbinski did for pirate films and bringing those to the forefront and actually making them something that was serious for a pirate movie and not, mocking it and making fun of it. Do the same thing with these classic monster flicks. Make
Yeah.
something that is tangibly like going to scare the hell out of people.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
like-
there's a reason people fell in love with the original novels because they are terrifying. And even for their time, the original Frankenstein and Dracula made by Universal, yeah, they're campy by today's standards, but they were terrifying when they first released.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they got campier as it went along.
Yeah.
No, absolutely, and that, which is, it's disappointing because these are beloved properties that we now have the special effects and the makeup and I think even the wherewithal in terms of the foresight of making something that
You
can
can make,
last.
a really good
The
iteration.
and it just stinks because it's like, man, they just keep butchering the return of these properties, but such is Hollywood and the state that it's in terms of just trying to pump stuff out for whether it's the theater and they know, oh, well, I don't need to stay in the theater that long. We'll just get a cash grab whenever it comes to video on demand, and that's all we need. So yeah, 2 out of 4 stars, unfortunately, for The Last Voyage of the Demeter.
Yeah.
Marginally worth a watch if you want to. If you're in the Halloween spirit,
I mean, if
you
you're
wanna
that
check it
big
out.
a fan of like Dracula and stuff like that, I guess.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know.
But yeah, otherwise, I'd say you could pass it. It'll be forgotten. It'll be a forgetful movie.
If you're a fan of the Onion Knight and just have to see everything he's ever been in, I guess.
There you go. Alrighty, guys, let's move into our headline segment. That's right, headlines.
What?
I hate to say it. I kind of, again, I did the thing where, we made a statement of today. Well, not a statement. Tonight's episode
Yeah.
is titled Disney in Complete Decline.
Well, that's not clickbait at all.
Yeah, exactly. So I
I feel like you've used variations of this title a few times.
I have.
Disney's
It's like-
dead. Disney's in decline.
It's like Disney in disarray.
Yeah,
Or actually, I
yeah.
used DC disarray.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, variations of the
Man.
same
I
thing.
mean, obviously they're
I'm
struggling.
waiting for the House of Mouse has in the trap. That's
oh,
what I'm
all
wanting.
right. Yes, keep them coming.
Yeah.
We're gonna
I
have
want to
many
see
more
something like
topics.
that.
Well, okay, it is clickbaity. I'll admit it. But we have our 2 major headlines tonight are specifically about Disney.
Yeah.
And just
the fools.
it it's things that have been incubating for a while. They've incubating, whatever, however you want to say it.
Incubating?
Yeah, I said it wrong. I pronounced it wrong. Incubating. It's like a Disney Disney way of incubating. But no.
You serious, Clark?
Yep, I'm serious. So these things have been at a point where they've been about to boil over for a while, and I think it's just catching up with them, and it's bad timing. The first thing that I do want to bring up...
I love that it's all blowing up at one time, because it's like they're already in the hole, so the fact that this is just...
You can hide, you can, within headlines and within, over time, you can hide like these small defeats, but when it's all at once, there's no denying it.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I like about it.
They say you shouldn't kick them while they're down, but I'm enjoying it.
See, I knew even if I put the title up there, regardless of it being a little bit, I don't know,
deceitful,
grandiose, I knew y'all would love it because you jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
But no, let's first talk about one of the major headlines, which is right after the announcement of the Marvel VFX houses unionizing
or voting to.
We
don't have
unionize.
an official yet.
Disney now has its VFX houses voting to jump on the bandwagon and unionize as well. I do find this interesting because the vote is set to take place next week, September 11th, and the votes will be counted on September 12th, and they will basically decide the direction of two huge major institutions in Hollywood, Marvel and Disney, even though I know Disney owns Marvel.
Well, the Marvel vote is set for... They haven't mentioned when Disney itself is going to vote, according to this article. It said earlier this month, VFX crews at Marvel Studios voted to unionize beginning August 21st. Ballots are due September 11th, and the vote count will take place on the 12th. But yeah, Disney, it's...
they've signed the pledge.
Even though Disney does own Marvel, the VFX houses... Like, the teams are two different teams, but both now... Marvel did it first, which is funny, and now Disney's very own house is doing it. So it's like you got two of their biggest VFX studios basically saying...
No. It's more than just two VFX studios. It's 18. A plethora.
Yeah.
18
yeah.
Right.
Well, I meant two of the... Because there's 18 just for Disney alone, but I meant two of the separate as far as Disney's... umbrellas, I guess, Marvel and then Disney, because they do differentiate them. Like, Marvel's not considered part of... Like, those VFX houses aren't considered the same as what Disney's are right here.
Which is interesting, because I'm curious to see how much of, the legwork... Because we know this happens all the time with regard to whether a movie is on time or not. They're going to outsource their visual effects work depending on how big of a movie it is to get things done. And it would be... I'm curious to see how often these two teams or tons of different visual effects houses end up
I'm sure
using each other to get work done because they're in crunch time. And basically that ultimately is what is a result of this unionization effort, is the fact that they've not been in discussion to have any union credibility. Say what you will about, I mean, we're outspoken in terms of writers, having the right, and the same with the SAG, group, and them, having their own representation within a union, or even take an everyday American in terms of the unions in that regard. And we've been outspoken about what they can do for people's rights, but also how they can exploit that to the point of driving away other workers and honestly lining their own pockets when you have certain union reps that do that. There are certain industries that still, I think you need that representation. And when you've gotten as big and bloated as Hollywood, I think it not only warrants it, but we've seen it with the amount of things that have been rushed out to film, that have been pressured to get things done on some of these quote-unquote below-the-line, people. Yeah. And I think this is a perfect example of the backlash that you've seen that has just been mounting since the WGA strike and since the SAG-AFTRA strike, and them coinciding together for the first time in 40, 50 years. Now you have the same thing with regard to other departments who are thinking, hey, we need to be covered as well. Like, we need to start thinking about how we're being abused and they're taking advantage of us. And it really does speak to, I think, the larger problem of how bloated Hollywood has become. and how it's just been a festering bubble that has been getting bigger and bigger.
Well,
it's
all
like a big
focused
zit.
on is
You gotta pop it.
Yeah, they're just focused on churning out content constantly, and that's why I'm kind of glad this happened to Disney first with the VFX studios, because I think there's no clearer example than Disney when you look at everything they've been putting on Disney Plus, from Marvel, Star Wars, the live action remakes of their Disney classics. From the writing, the acting, and the visual effects, you can tell everything's rushed. The writing is terrible. It has no depth. The visual effects, everybody made fun of She-Hulk when it came out, and they've not gotten any better. So it's like, when you look at this, you can tell it's like, yeah, y'all are just pumping out crap and hoping people will pay to watch it because it has Marvel slapped on it, or it has Star Wars slapped on it.
Yeah. Because Ahsoka, I've watched that.
I've seen
and
Ahsoka.
It's
Well, you have words?
I'm just saying it doesn't look great.
It's
not befitting of Star Wars.
It's not very because I love
Just
Rebels
visually, but story wise,
it's very shallow.
Yeah.
In fact, the first 2 episodes is like, this whole thing is just reintroducing you to characters from Rebels because they know people haven't seen like that animated show, but it has no depth to it. I saw even the characters aren't as good as they were on Rebels. I was just like, these characters are like,
you got animated characters that were better than what the live
actors are doing with them. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I saw one meme of, because again, Filoni's he's been the one spearheading Ahsoka.
Yeah.
And it's funny that
I used to love Filoni. I trusted him fully with Star Wars,
the one that's
but
supposed to save Star Wars.
But somebody put out a meme of like all of the different things you'd have to watch to get the references.
Oh, it's huge.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
And I'm not.
Nerdrotic did one like that, where he went through all of them.
Well, it's because he made Clone Wars, he made Rebels, he did Bad Batch, he co-made Mandalorian with Jon Favreau, and that ties into Ahsoka too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, there you go, you got 4 series right there. Plus, if you include Boba Fett, because 2 of those episodes are just Mandalorian season 2.5. So it's like, if you don't watch those 5 things, you don't know what the heck's going on in Ahsoka.
So as you getting back to the VFX talk, it's like, yes, it's
well, that went a little bit with bad writing too, but
right. But it's also just the idea that you can tell the churning out of mediocre material is catching up with them. And granted, look, Bob Iger can step in all he wants and say how much this is a problem with Chapek, and this is the problem of why we had to get rid of him. And the chicken's got to come home to roost at some point. And you've now been on the job for you're closing in on your first year back. And I know you've had to weather the storm and all these controversies, but when you've got the strike line coming out, and these are not people that we're fully on board with either. I mean, when you have I think it was one of the writers of the trilogy, the recent Star Wars trilogy, that was sitting there saying, rather be striking here than writing something that Lucasfilm is forcing me to write any day of the week. I'm like, okay, so these people don't even have a love for the material they're supposedly being hired for.
Yeah.
It's literally almost as if you're just hiring somebody with a little bit of talent that has a name that you can slap a,
same
look,
thing
this
with
is
Netflix and
The
Witcher.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing. I don't even know if it's just because he's not a fan of Star Wars. I took that kind of as he was a fan of Star Wars and he hates the direction that Lucasfilm is forcing him. Because I've seen that with a lot of writers too, where they talk about the things they've written aren't the things they wanted to write. It's what's been mandated to them by either Marvel, Lucasfilm, because it's like, of course, they all have an agenda. You have to include this, and this. And several writers said, look, it's no longer our talent being put to script. It's, hey, you have to write. And I know for a fact Feige does that. He's very much involved in what goes into the movies, and that leaves little room for anything creative. And sorry, there's been nothing creative from Disney in a long time.
But the fact is this all has been, I think, again, incubating for quite a while in the sense that back when Life of Pi won the best visual effects Oscar, and granted, I think part of this was tongue in cheek with the article that we have linked in the description, and then a lot of this is also just kind of, hey, that's just the virtue of live TV, but I can't remember if it was the director or the lead artist of the visual effects department, but he got up there to accept the Oscar and he started to thank not only the people who were, I think it was somebody who was a producer of the film, because all of the artists and I think the main people at the VFX house were protesting outside the Oscars that year. But basically he wanted to thank them and he said, hey, they need your help right now because they're in a position of going bankrupt because working on this film and the stressful deadlines and not actually, doing it to the excess of what we needed to meet the deadline, not only burned our people, but it also didn't pay us well. I mean,
and it's only gotten worse.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
The Sonic VFX team, I
Yeah.
thought they went bankrupt. There's been many that have talked about how overworked or whether these houses are going bankrupt because it's all you have to do this, and this, but we're not going to pay you for any of it because. And granted, I know that's partly contracts, and you can argue, yeah, they should have fought for a better contract, and that is part of it. But that's what they're doing now.
Something somewhat related, but a little bit. It's going on a different track, but kind of the same story. You were telling me about One Piece.
Oh yeah,
and the fact that Netflix encourages creators.
Netflix wants their new shows. If you've noticed the trend with Netflix series, they've been clocking in around 8. They used to just be like around 12 episodes. I know when Daredevil first came out, it was 12, and then it went down to about 10. Now most new seasons are 8. And the writers on strike have been talking about how Netflix encourages. They want the shows to be 8 because that's more bingeable. You can watch 8 episodes in a whole weekend if you want to, because they're hoping people will watch it and move on to the next thing, which is again. Quantity over quality. Let's churn out so many 8-episode series because maybe we can get people to keep watching crap after crap. Whereas instead of we can make 10 8-episode series instead of 4 good solid series that are whatever length of episodes we need them to be.
Well, and it goes back to simply just keeping your eyeballs on that service. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with watching YouTube videos and why they intersperse ads or even TV. The problem with YouTube is it's like directly in the middle of the content and people don't create their streaming content specifically for an ad. Like some do, but there's a difference between a creator putting in an ad buy and when you're in the middle of a video learning how to fix your toilet and then boom, an ad pops up and you're just like, damn it, can I not just figure out this next step? And it's like the issue becomes not only do they want you to continue to stay on the platform, they've got to make it valuable for themselves the longer you stay on the platform. And so it's the same with all these streaming services. What they're wanting to do is to make sure that not only you're binge watching, but that as long as more time is spent on Netflix than any other platform, that's the longer they've got you and your eyeballs and your attention. And to me, that's kind of the ridiculous race that we're in with all of these production houses is they just want more and more and more and more. And even when they have these huge ballooning budgets, when it comes to something like One Piece, which isn't cheap, when it comes to something like The Witcher, which
isn't cheap,
baffles me that they would take so many missteps in the wrong direction. I mean, we lambasted it. And we're coming up on the year anniversary of Rings of Pooh.
Oh, yeah.
Rings of Pooh is $1 billion
I'll be honest.
debacle for Amazon Prime, and yet how could you get something like that so wrong?
I kind of miss having something to look for. No, I didn't really look forward. I looked forward to House of the Dragon last year, but I did find Rings of Pooh entertaining just to laugh at how terrible it was. So
yes. I agree. It was well worth the laugh, but after a while, I was just like,
you just hate seeing. I hated seeing Tolkien's work butchered because I'm like, man,
yes,
knowing how good it is and it can be. That was, and I mean, granted, I don't hate,
but
live action One Piece the way I did Rings of Pooh. I have some gripes with it, but that was how I felt with that. Is knowing how good it could be, and that if you had given this series like even just 2 more episodes to where it was 10 episodes instead of 8, to let certain emotional elements like breathe, it would have been like almost a spot-on adaptation. And I can't, it baffles me how they want to truncate and cut things. I mean, even with Rings of Power, it's like all they want to do is dangle the keys in front of your eyes and hope that the flashy lights is good enough to keep your attention.
Right.
Whereas it's like, no, if you actually give me something that I can chew on and think about and have like emotions to connect to the characters, I'm going to come back and watch again. Like I'll come back for every season you make. But then when you do like The Witcher, where you just completely start butchering everything,
but they don't want you to come
actor,
back. They don't want you to come back. They want you to move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
But that's what I find so interesting is they're willing to shell out all of these money, and you can't sit here and say that even with, especially that's the baffling nature of it. The bigger franchises that they have spent all this money on. It almost is like they're given the right amount of time. They just take the wrong steps.
Yeah.
And they make the wrong choices. But then on these other notes, especially with Disney and Disney Plus, what we've seen with regard to the Star Wars franchises, you had some success with Mandalorian Season 1, and it caught on to like, oh, if this is the quality of the work we're going to get, I'm hooked. I'm bought in. And then we've only seen it get bigger and bigger, especially with the Marvel stuff thrown in there. and it's almost become tiring, not only how much you have to keep up with, but the amount of there just being a lull and there's nothing that really is worth watching. There is nothing competing. Even if you're competing for my attention, you make it seem like I'm already bought in because I'm a Star Wars fan or I'm a Marvel fan. I'm going to show up no matter what.
Yeah.
And they're still depending heavily on that audience, and that's about the only audience that's still paying attention.
Well, that's all you can have when you have so much stuff. It's like who has the time to keep track of it unless you're a diehard Star Wars fan who doesn't watch anything but Star Wars. It's like, I'm sorry, I can't watch 5 Star Wars series plus all the other stuff I would like to watch that isn't Star Wars because Star Wars isn't my entire life.
Yeah. And I mean, it works to some degree because for me, all of the Star Wars series that they've launched, like, I've watched them. Now, some of them I only watched the first 2 or 3 episodes and then I quit. I'm like, nope, this is terrible. I'm done. I'm not giving it my time. But it's like they assume correctly as a Star Wars fan, I'm gonna try everything you put out there. Yeah, I'm gonna take a bite, but I'm not gonna eat the whole thing. So,
I've tasted enough to realize it's not good. Yeah, no, I agree. I think if there's one bright spot to the strikes, I mean, we keep hearing the memes every week of like, how many months have we seen the writers and the actors on strike now and nobody cares? Yeah, because I mean, I'm already looking forward to binging 1883, 1923 in Yellowstone, and I already know too that doesn't have a happy ending because Kevin Costner's not coming back.
I know it.
But I'm like, I'm willing to catch up on things that I haven't seen, and there's still so much more content. You know, I was definitely on the bandwagon way back when Netflix came out and they started doing their own originals, and I thought, I want more. I want more of this because it was a competition against the crap we were getting on cable, and even to see some of the cable networks like AMC and FX,
they fought
bringing
back.
out
they had to
Breaking
step it up.
Bad, Walking Dead. I mean, you started seeing actual competition against the network television, you know, the networks where you had to go to get the bigger budget. Now the networks have cheaped out and go for the weird, terrible sitcom with the laugh track that isn't funny versus these other networks, you know, that actually have, you know, properties that are worth revisiting.
Well, and that's the thing, too, going back to like the VFX workers and the CGI, is because, if you watch something on, you know, your local stations, ABC, CBS, you expect it to not look good. It doesn't have a great budget. But then when you had things like AMC and The Walking Dead come along and the makeup effects and everything looked stellar, and then Netflix came along and they made series like Daredevil where you had CGI that is comparable to, you know, not a huge like blockbuster, but still a low budget film. And it's like you were impressed that it's like, oh my gosh, we're getting like almost cinema grade quality on a streaming service. But they've backtracked. It's like I remember someone was comparing. It was Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean, which came back in 2003.
No, it would have been later than that.
5? I mean, it wasn't the mid 2000s.
Early, yeah.
Wait, Dead Man's Chest would have been.
That might have been 2007.
04 or 5.
Okay.
07 was At World's End. And those came
2006 was Dead Man's Chest.
Okay. Yep.
So, and that's a movie from
That
06.
still holds up.
And
Yes.
they were
Still
comparing
looks
it to,
amazing.
of course, She-Hulk, which looks like garbage. And it's like, look at how well, I mean, it's a blend of practical and CGI.
Yeah.
But, Davy Jones looks amazing. And then you look at modern
that's a
stuff.
movie. That's not a TV
Okay,
series.
let's compare Davy Jones to the gelatinous blob from Ant-Man because he still holds up better than
Well,
MODOK.
I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched about 30 minutes of The Little Mermaid, and it looks like hot garbage. CGI.
guarantee
And that's
it.
a movie, too.
Yep.
And that's one of Disney's biggest properties that they tried to remake into a live action. It looks terrible.
Same studio. Disney made Pirates, they made Little Mermaid. And Little Mermaid does, like, you could think they're both sea things.
And here's the thing.
Why can't it look as good as Pirates did 10 years ago?
Again, and we know, too, based on just the amount of pressure that was on the studios to push those movies out then, and obviously with more archaic, computer and graphics cards from that age in terms of the supercomputers they had then doing all their rendering don't match what we have now.
Yep.
And of course, I know things are supposed to be in higher fidelity based on technology getting better, but obviously we've also pushed to the limit of, now we just have it. We basically use technology to say, well, now we can just mass produce it. Because one of the fears and points of contention along with the writers, but also now the visual effects studios, is the use of AI. And they were talking about that being possibly another reason why they wanted to unionize. And they said, definitely it seems like what's going to happen is while we are in a lull, or while we aren't using this time to create things because we have the strike going on, we are worried that it's like they may try to then, express this use of AI and fast track it. And if they fast track it, then it's going to be the issue of, it's not going to look good, but you'll get 90% of the way there, and then you're going to have visual effects houses coming in, fixing up the last 10% and using 90% of their workforce to fix up 10% of the movie. And granted, you could say, well, that's maybe injuity. That's still going to need a human element. Exactly. You could use that argument, or it could end up backfiring on the studio and the VFX houses in general, because maybe the touch-up isn't as good. It still looks like garbage. Or maybe them trying to cut corners from the studio element makes it a total flop because you can tell the CGI is just god-awful. It could be backfiring that way, or like you said, it could be a huge beneficial boon to the industry in pumping out the content that they are wanting to pump out. I think that is ultimately the issue, though, is not necessarily, again, all for people having their gripes with being overworked. I think no more do you see that than in visual effects houses these days, with how many go under, but also with how many are needed. And even I think one of the articles we linked to is talking about how some were scared because they're afraid that when the strikes lift, if they vote to unionize, they may not be hired for their next job, because they may see that as a threat. And there is always that element of, oh crap, someone's out there to take my job.
Non-union VFX team,
And honestly, it's sad that if the unions wouldn't need to exist if there were tempered expectations, not only from the producers, but even from an audience that seems to be at a moment where I don't think they're consuming nearly as much as we're pretended to believe. I think there is so much excessive amounts of content out there right now that you really do have to ask the question, is all this stuff needed? Like, you may say, you need it to boost your bottom dollar, but I'm like, why can't that investment go towards something else that's a greater innovation than just trying to rinse and repeat? We just talked about it with the last Voyage of the Demeter. Here we are in a situation where it's like, they probably put that out in theaters, hoping to get the buzz of early goers saying, man, this looks really good. It's got pretty good. Yeah, I'm interested in that. Doesn't do great. Doesn't do hot. Kind of flops. But it was a $40 million budget film.
If you push it out on digital,
if they got a theater run of $30 million, even with some promotion, and maybe you're topping out at close to $90 million total for the whole. And then they're like, but now in a month it'll be on video on demand, and that's where we'll make all of our money back. It really is this whole entire concept of just constant, let's push it out. We know we'll get our money back. Let's push it out, and people will consume.
It's funny because, like you said, there's so much out there. I think about this because there's certain things we all watch, like House of the Dragon, because we share the same interest. But then there's tons of other things that I know Sean's watched that I've never seen, I may never seen. Things you watch that I've never seen, may never seen. Things I watch that you all never see. And when you think about that, and then the past where you only had 3 network stations on TV, so you only had 3 shows on at the same time, everybody watched the same thing. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if you're focusing on quality over quantity.
Right.
It's like, yeah, I understand you want to have different genres, different things for different tastes. You can still do that without having so much content that you are bifurcating viewership and you're not getting people pulled in because only 100,000 people are watching this and only 50,000 people are watching that. And it's like, maybe if you focus on making, instead of 20 shows a month, but 5 really solid good ones, you pull in more viewers. And then look at how much fun we've had. We've had fun watching the same stuff, or even when we played Death Stranding all at the same time. How much fun we had discussing that. One thing I loved about going to work back at Bob Evans for a time was Game of Thrones and Walking Dead, because there were several line cooks that watched both shows, and every Sunday we'd get to work and we'd discuss all the crazy crap we saw on those two shows. And it's like a sense of community built there too. And it's
Well,
like
the
now
water
everything's
cooler
just-
talk.
Yeah.
There is no water
Yeah.
cooler talk anymore. It's almost impossible to have because there's so much.
Yeah.
I mean, I bring it up all the time at work about if I'm talking, hey, have you seen that yet? No, I haven't checked that out. Have you seen this? No, I haven't
Yeah.
checked. It's just like,
You can't get to everything.
right. And,
Yeah.
and it's funny you bring up Death Stranding because, I mean, just video games in general, I feel like are the only art right now that's out that you can thoroughly not only enjoy with someone else, but because the production time takes so long. I mean, I've even felt this recently with some. We've joked about it on the show with how many games have come out just within this year alone that have
Yeah.
been worth playing. But because of the short windows in which they release, they're all from different developers. And I know some would argue, oh, you could do the same with Hollywood. I'm like, yeah, but there's plethora of more movies and shows coming out from Universal, from Paramount, from Disney, from the major players that clearly it's just all from the same production house. Whereas a developer will literally spend years developing a game to put it out. And yeah, there may be one right after another that's just a great game to play, and then you dive into another one. But at least there, it's such a labor of love, and it's so intense
Yeah.
because of how much focus they have to have that when you start a project, you're literally 2 years out at least from reaching your finish line,
Yeah.
and hoping that whatever it is you're doing is still going to be popular and worthwhile.
Yeah. It's like Bethesda doesn't put out 4 or 5 games a year.
No.
You know, Disney puts out 10 or 12 movies a year.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that might be.
That's probably generous.
Yeah, that's probably generous.
I would say maybe in theaters.
Yeah.
I mean, let alone all the other content they
Yeah.
release on their own
Heck,
platform.
Marvel at one time had like 4 movies in 1 year just alone. So
It's just, it's crazy to me because I think we're fast approaching not only the excesses of just way too much. I mean, we've already seen that with streaming, but it really is to the point. I mean, we've talked about it with regard to prices, but when a certain service is not offering me something of quality, it just gets to be to the point where I'm like, okay, I don't even enjoy that anymore. I don't use it.
Yeah.
So why am I paying for it? Even for the one-off shoot that it's like, I may just start. I mean, everything is a la carte with regard to subscriptions and streaming prices. None of them are contractual. So I may just start saying, all right, if I want to watch a Disney movie that I haven't seen in a while, I may subscribe for a month. I'll get my fix and then I'm out.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of going to be the way of it.
And the thing, I don't think they care.
No,
I don't think they care about that. They got you for a month. That's what they wanted.
Netflix certainly doesn't.
Otherwise, they would put contracts on it. Otherwise, it would be a yearly plan. It wouldn't be a monthly plan.
Well, and Netflix basically showcased with their password crackdown. It was like they knew that people would come in,
Yep.
pay for whatever tier they wanted, but that was extra money they weren't getting from the password sharing. So to them, it was like net positive. That's all they care. I mean, I get it. They're a business. They've got to make a bottom dollar. That's their ultimate goal, is to make the shareholders happy.
No.
But what we're talking about is becoming customer centric again, to the point where when you're putting out something that you know is favorable for your customer, I get it. Yeah, there are risks involved, and sometimes you don't have that you know, your fingers on the pulse of what's popular, and you may make a flop. But every once in a while, you're a New Line Cinema that makes a bet and a gamble on a Peter Jackson, and you get Lord of the Rings, not only 3 classic films that last and stand the test of time, but truly become something that saves a dying production studio.
Yeah.
And also sets forth, I think, a new echelon of what other creators are going to strive to you know, ascertain. I think you mentioned it in terms of, I forget when it was, maybe it was when you came over to record the review, Keith, but it was talking about how that used to be what any filmmaker would aspire to do.
Oh, I was, yeah.
Go ahead.
I was talking about One Piece, because when you asked me what I thought about it, and this isn't me knocking that show, it's just saying that I feel like there's times when you have a gripe about something, that people will just be like, well, this is a live action, it can't do this or that, or things have to change from just like books to movie or animated show to movie. And it's like, no, I get that. I don't mind changing things because the medium is different. What bothers me is that things should still hold true to who the characters are and the themes. And there's things about Lord of the Rings that changed that at first kind of irked me too. Faramir's a big one that still I wish they hadn't, but I understood why they did. And I don't understand why when you mention Lord of the Rings as the gold standard, I'll be like, if Lord of the Rings can do it, anybody should be able to do it. And people will be like, "Oh, but that's way up there. That's the gold standard. You can't expect everybody. You can't expect everybody to be that good." But I'm like, why can't I expect everybody to be that good?
Yeah.
They already did it. It's like that's like saying you should just accept mediocrity because only a rare thing could be that good. It's like everybody should try to be that good. I understand you might fail, but I don't understand why you don't at least try and aspire.
Yeah.
That's the point of there being an ideal.
Yeah.
And we just
it's-
heard that the same thing with the in the video game industry when you brought up about Baldur's Gate 3.
That's right.
And people talking about how this is an amazing game, and now everybody's going to expect every game to be
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, yeah, exactly.
Exactly. They raised the bar.
Yeah.
It's like
yet-
once the genie's out of the bottle, you don't put it back. I mean, it's
And
stupid.
it's funny because
Well, unless it's Will Smith. Then you put it back.
please,
and then you throw it in
please.
the ocean.
But no, that's actually what's funny too with the gaming industry right now is Starfield just came out and it's causing controversy online.
Yeah.
But it's getting, mostly positive reviews from people who've played it. But it is yet again another Bethesda game where you have the issue of some people saying it takes way too long to get into. It takes way too long to get to the creative aspect of what the game offers as something we've never seen before.
Right.
But it's like then there's weird things of like it being compared to even something like No Man's Sky that released,
Yeah.
to a debacle back in the day. I mean, what, 6-7 years ago now
Yeah.
at this point?
People
But-
trashed it.
but they came out with patch after patch after patch and fixed that game to being something incredible that now, again, you can gripe about even that process and releasing something unfinished. I absolutely would contend that you don't do that.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to see that when you have Starfield released so closely after something like Baldur's Gate 3, which is roundly praised and also criticized by those who are in the gaming industry. I mean, I hate to say it. I don't want to throw too much shade here because I like his channel, but there was a little bit of beef recently with even Linus Tech Tips. And there was another channel that went after him about his poor reviews and how they had missing numbers in their graphs or even doing reviews poorly. And it hit the team hard to the point where they had to address it because they had a wave of community backlash. And look, I like Linus Tech Tips. I think he's genuine. I do think there's sometimes where I disagree with his takes or I think he's being a little bit, too much of a personality. But ultimately, it was a stance for him to say, look, we have these arbitrary deadlines on when we release videos based on whether or not we've gotten sponsor deals or whether or not we've talked about generating content, and we've set a certain goalpost of we've got to release this content on this time. And if we miss a deadline, well, then it throws everything off. So we've got to hit our deadlines at whatever cost. And he did. He had to eat his own words and say that has now started to affect the quality of the channel and actual, real work that we're saying. We're backing up with our own methods, and you can trust us. It's now diminishing our trust, and when you have that quality of life check, I think it does not only the business good, it does the greater industry as a whole good.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you ultimately have to face with regard to Disney and what their issue is and why I do think they're in a complete decline right now because they've lost their sense of soul, their sense of being. They don't have any compass pointing them in the right direction. And I'm sorry, but Iger doesn't seem like someone he was 10 years ago, making the moves he was when Disney was ambitious and trying to eat up these properties. And we were all praising him for it every time he got a Marvel and he got Star Wars. And it was like, oh, he can do no wrong. And here it is now. It's like he's on a sinking ship and he's got a pail. He's trying to throw out the water real quick.
Yeah.
And salvage
It
what
makes
he
me
can.
feel like they didn't really bring him on to right the ship. It makes me feel like they were like, this other guy's got a bad rap. We want to get him out. We want to bring back in a familiar name, a familiar
Stabilize it.
face. We're going to bring you back in. We're going to pay you good money, but you can't rock the boat. You can't change anything. You can't right the ship until we find somebody to replace the guy that we just fired. And I don't think it's going to be him. Obviously, he signed a contract through 28 or 20.
I can't remember how long
or
the
28.
extension was. He
I
just
thought it was
signed a
initially
contract.
2 years, but then they extended it.
Yeah, but I mean, and that's fine. In the scale of time, 2 or 3 years for Disney, that's nothing.
Yeah.
But I just don't feel like he's not doing anything right now.
Right.
Everything is still the same as it was with Chapek.
It's worse.
So, worse.
I was gonna
but
say-
that's because it's still on the same trajectory as
Exactly.
Chapek put it on.
And I hate to say it, but I think he even underestimated not only the damage that was done with Chapek, but prior to him leaving, the damage was set in stone with regard to the direction they were already headed in.
Yeah.
And I think he's underestimating how much of a direct turn to right the course is going to be. And I think he's kind of, I hate to say it, it's like the inflation rate right now of the Fed trying to come in and stabilize it so that we don't have a crash. And it's like you're avoiding the inevitable of trying to be too hurtful, but then at some point it catching up with you to that you can't avoid the disaster anymore. And that to me, it's funny because I mean we want to move into our next topic specifically about Disney too, because just talking about taking hit after hit, it's funny how it also now even comes into play with other things that you didn't think would be a huge deal. But Disney and Charter, the blackout that's going on right now, happened just before the football season kicks off. And of course, Disney's got their side of the story and how they're trying to extend negotiations with Spectrum.
channels. It's not our. It's like if this doesn't scream, we need more money. Like that's all. It's like, oh, we're gonna hold our channels hostage until we get more money because we don't know how any other way to stop bleeding.
And trust me, I'm not a Spectrum or Charter fan.
No, Spectrum's garbage.
Yeah, and trust me, they've done their own cheap shots in terms of trying to get me to pay more over years, or using the guise of, oh well, we can't negotiate any better deal. This is all these other companies that own these products. And trust me, I get it. Disney owns a crap ton of channels that most people don't even watch or don't want.
Yeah.
But they don't give you the chance to do a la carte. Of course not. And then Spectrum does have to buy into this contract for how long they're going to carry it. And of course, Spectrum is quick to point out, well, they did the same thing with YouTube TV back in 2021 and Dish Network and DirecTV back in 2022. It's like, okay, that's fine. But at the same time, the issue is if I'm not getting those channels and other services are, I'm obviously going to go somewhere else.
And that's what Disney wants. They want people to, because they want to hurt Spectrum until they give them what they want.
Right. And here's the thing.
Unfortunately, you as a consumer, you do have to jump ship. Like if you want those, like I'm not blaming people. It's just a nasty situation all the way around.
Well, it sucks because of the mental gymnastics you've got to go through to figure out a plan that works for you and getting the channels that you want. But it goes back to, like you said, what is Disney really focused on right now? If they're focused on things that are not going to be short-term losses but long-term gains, they're focused on, oh crap, we're bleeding money right now, we can't afford to lose anything else. And so they're pigeonholing themselves in these situations. And I'm not saying, I don't know Spectrum's side of the story. You listen to both. You go and read. You can go to charter.com right now and see it at the banner up at the top that gives you the whole description of what they're saying.
Yeah.
And of course, they're blaming Disney on, upping the price of what it is, which I believe is true.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then you've got Disney over here saying, yeah, the times are changing, and you all have gotten this sweetheart deal for whatever, and we've upped our charges. But it again, the customer loses in both situations.
Yep.
The customer is not happy with Charter. They're not happy with Disney. They don't care. All they want is they want to turn on their TV and they see this channel that they saw before, yesterday before it went to blackout. And especially when it comes to ESPN and watching a football game and football season. I mean, we were impacted here locally, both U of L and UK.
Oh, and I guarantee Disney knows that. Like, not just locally, just nationwide. They know this is football season. We block ESPN, SEC, these stations that we own. It's like people are going to be pissed, and they're not going to go with Spectrum.
You don't think they timed it perfectly before ball season
they're
starts?
stupid.
They're pointing the finger at Charter saying, no, we wanted to extend the negotiations, and Charter didn't want to. So now they backed us into a corner, so we had to pull the channels.
They offered a short-term extension, and Charter wanted a long-term, so they pulled it.
And, again, who knows what's going on. I'm sure they're going to come up with some agreement. Hell, it could have already happened tonight or right when the show. That's always,
We'll
that's
get
all
it
luck is
tomorrow. It'll come up.
Right.
Disney and Charter make agreement.
Right. But, or hell, there's also talks that, going back to, a little bit about the strike, it's interesting because apparently I think it was Warner Brothers CEO David Zaslav who was talking about how they had the hope of negotiations being reached in the early parts of September. It's September 5th.
Yeah.
So we're in the early parts of September. That could happen at any time if negotiations are still positively being, pursued here.
We'll see. I mean, I know Warner Brothers has stated they're hurting right now.
Yeah.
So
They said it would be a $300 to $500 million hit.
well, heck, they already pushed Dune back. It's like that's a movie that they could have earned a little bit, but I guess they're trying to save it to earn money next year. I mean,
they did say that Barbie was helping them out with the bottom line because of how successful it's been.
Yeah, well, of course.
So I mean, I think they're licking their wounds, but they're also like thinking, oh, good, we've got enough that we've staved off any kind of disaster, but it's still a $300 to $500 million loss.
Yeah,
is nothing to sneeze at.
This is actually. I saw it was a meme because Warner Brothers they're bringing Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, all 3 movies, back to theaters like this fall and winter, since they're postponing things because of the strikes, and then they're also releasing a box set of the Snyderverse. And this meme was like Warner Brothers is bleeding money so bad that they had to bring back Nolan and Snyder's DC movies to make money, and it's like they put all their faith in James Gunn, but they turned to Nolan and Snyder.
Make money off the other stuff.
Yeah, they put all their faith in James Gunn, but they're turning back to Nolan and Snyder to get money.
Hey.
I mean, I think WB is going to be fine.
Oh yeah, I just thought that was
it's
fun.
just look, this is what happens with the strikes do impact these studios. I think for better, in the sense that, like I said, not so much that I'm in the camp of, I'm all pro-union and pro-SAG and pro-WGA. Look, I think they have some worthy arguments, but I think this is the problem with the culture that you have in Hollywood in general of big ballooning production budgets from the producer side of things. You're just like, get more, we need more content, fire it out the door. And then you've got the people on the other end who are just like, I can only work so much, and you're already cutting into all of my, I don't even get a lunch break and I'm working 14, 15-hour days. But then on the backside of that, it's also like, but you also want to be part of this industry.
Yeah.
And you've gone into it accepting this and letting it go on this long. And you can say, well, that's why they need union representation. Yeah, to a degree, yes. But if the workload was spread out and it wasn't just all these big studios, or there was a way in which you could break down the Hollywood model, which I think ultimately is what this strike is leaning towards. I mean, again, we just talked about it a little bit, but it's like we've got way too much content.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We don't need that much. It's okay. It's good to have a breather.
Yeah.
Sucks for the people in their jobs, but I'm kind of on the side of I'm with the fact that we have a lull right now. Mm-hmm. I'm okay with that. There's way too much other crap that we can watch and play.
Too much out there.
Yeah. It's like McDonald's when they reduced their menu.
Yeah.
And people got so upset about that, but it's like, dude, if people are only buying Big Macs and chicken nuggets, then leave those 2 things and get rid of all the other crap that you're putting on your menu that nobody wants to order.
Except
it's like
for
you got to slim it down.
Wrap.
The chicken wrap.
Bring back the chicken wrap.
Yeah, everybody's been demanding the chicken wrap back, and I agree.
It's like when Taco Bell got rid of the Mexican pizza.
And they got the backlash.
And they got it back.
Yeah.
You got it back.
Yeah.
But no, the strikes are hurting big.
You could bring that stupid McRib that just tastes like garbage. It's like you could do the chicken wrap.
It's not even rib.
Hey,
it's not.
It's not even pork.
My manager at work.
Well, your manager has terrible taste.
He would fight you on this. He loves that McRib. I was not a fan.
I tried.
No.
Like I was like,
it's
I got
too much barbecue sauce on it.
I agree. I had my first
It's not even
one.
that. It's not even taste like fake meat. It's like barbecue sauce is too much. But I'm just like the meat itself isn't even good.
Yeah, it doesn't taste like pork.
I had my first one back in 2020 during the pandemic.
Oh, really?
Because they brought it back. And I was like, you know what? I'm not.
It's trash.
It was 2020 or early 2021.
It's like, look, everybody, it's COVID. We're bringing back the McRib.
Yeah, but you know,
everybody. All it is like you ever go to like the grocery store and they have like the family like rib cutlets. Like,
yeah,
that's all
that's
it
what
is.
it is.
Frozen.
It's a frozen.
And when you see them make it, because I've seen videos online, it's a frozen little puck that they put on the grill. Then they
make it
sauce
and they
over
shape it. They make it look like ribs.
Right.
But it's not.
It's just
fake.
It's just fake meat that they put it heat up. And I'm like, I can go to Walmart and buy the same exact thing. And people are like, it's not the same. It is the exact exact same
Well,
thing.
when you've got to slather it in that much barbecue sauce and
onions.
throw a few onions on
Yeah.
there and
Yeah.
say, "Oh yeah," and
I
then
do like the bread they put it on though.
well, that's the
Yeah.
weird thing. The deli bread is also like I can go get a freaking sesame seed bun bread. At
Yeah.
Yeah, I can go
frickin-
buy some like hoagie buns from
Kroger.
Kroger and some of these riblets in the frozen
Make your
freezer
own.
aoil.
We should do it.
Make your own. Put
We
your
should
own
make our own
sauce on it.
McRib.
Put
Let's
the
do
Mark
it.
sauce
And
on
make
it.
it taste better than they do.
Yeah.
I agree though. It's kind of like once you get, I mean, fast food itself is bad enough for you. It's like you're right. It's like if they're diluting the menu,
Yeah.
that's probably a good thing overall.
Yes,
I mean,
like,
I hate to say it.
We don't
Taco
need...
Bell's got the worst, dude. They have like you got a Crunchwrap Supreme, you got a Crunchwrap Supreme
their
Extra, you
menu's
got
ridiculous.
a Crunchwrap. I mean, it's like it's the same thing. You
There's
just
4 versions of every
yes,
taco.
there's
yeah.
4 versions of everything.
Taco Bell is the best fast food. It's so good. And the way they get you is every freaking month they do those freaking Crave boxes.
Oh, man,
Yeah.
I
the
love the
$5
Crave
boxes, and
Yeah.
they mix and match what's in there and some new
That's
like
the thing.
we brought nacho fries.
You can
back.
also go to
Done,
Taco
done,
Bell, buy you a
done.
Crave box that has tons of food in it, is filling, and it's way cheaper than McDonald's.
That's
you get a
true.
sandwich and a fry and Coke at McDonald's for $12. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
It is. The price is insane.
Their value menu's not even a value.
No, it's
anymore.
like $3 for a McDouble and $2 for a McChicken, and I'm like, that's not even a value anymore.
No. And I swear, because they brought that chicken sandwich out, they changed. I think they switched from mayo to Miracle Whip on the McChicken.
No,
I
really?
can't stand it.
I
don't
haven't had a
like it.
McChicken in a
Man,
while.
it's
How did,
bad.
I got us on the
It's gotta be
wrong
mayo,
topic
yeah.
here.
Yeah.
We
This
go
is,
all
this is
night
our
about
vices.
fast food.
This is our vices segment right here.
We
What's
need
vices?
To, I
Let's
say
do that.
we need to move into vices. Let's roll that open. That
had to.
cough was like
I
perfectly
had to.
timed.
I had to.
Vices. Actually, we could
you got
bring
for us?
we could bring that topic back around and do.
What was the? I want to know what's the other one.
I told them I was not going to tell them what the vice topic was till we got on the show.
Yeah.
Buying something you didn't need.
Yeah,
So
the
fast
McRib.
food.
I bought the McRib and I didn't need it
There
because
it
it was
is.
garbage.
I know. I
Happens
I
all the
did.
time.
I wanted to bring this up because I was like, there's been times where you're just sitting there and you just you want to splurge and buy
Yeah.
something and you don't need it, but you're just like, I got the money and this would be nice to
Yeah.
have. And
Yeah, we
fast food's definitely one of those.
I wasn't gonna tell you guys until I got it, but since you brought it up,
Here we go.
so
Confession.
I received a sizable amount of money from my mom to just have fun. Me and my wife both got some money just to have fun.
Dude, he went on Team U and bought
So
everything.
no, I
got an
didn't buy
Xbox,
anything on
didn't
Temu.
You wanted that Starfield. You got an Xbox.
I didn't get an Xbox.
Okay.
Oh,
no.
I was gonna say, that would have been big.
I bought the entire racing set for Gran Turismo. The wheel.
Oh.
Are you
yeah,
freaking
everything.
serious?
Yeah, I got
Nice.
a chair, the wheel, the pedals, the shifter, all of it.
Dang.
You saw that movie and you were
I
like,
haven't got
gotta
it. I
feel
haven't
it.
got it yet. It's on back order.
He's
but
like,
it's
I have
on,
to have
it's
it.
on its way.
Dang.
Holy
I
crap!
ordered it.
Wait! Pedals, the wheel.
I got
course.
I got the wheel. I didn't get the nothing like what the guy in the movies got. No, nothing like that.
You didn't get like the whole rig set up.
I mean, I got like a rig, but it's not it's Logitech steering wheel. It's
Okay.
kind of like their mid grade steering wheel pedals.
Yeah.
They had a deal on Amazon where normally you got to buy the shifter
Shifter?
separate.
Yeah.
They had a deal where the shifter was included for the same price as the wheel and pedals. So I got that, and then I got like a chair thing that it mounts
Does it vibrate?
to. All of it vibrates. The chair doesn't vibrate. No.
Oh, okay. All right.
But no, the chair's just like it's there's a sweepstakes that Gran Turismo's been doing. Sony's been doing it.
Oh,
for,
Sean's gonna win.
And the sweepstakes, everything that's in it is what I bought. So
Okay.
It's
so
like it's a chair,
almost like
a wheel,
it's
and the whole
sanctioned
set.
by Gran Turismo. Then it's something they would approve of.
yeah, everything. I mean, the wheel even has GT on it. Like it's
Oh,
official.
damn.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Dude.
So
I'm looking forward
I haven't
to
got
you
it
getting
yet.
this. How
I got the chair
far's-
today. I haven't put it together yet.
How
but,
far is the back order? How long?
the wheel is supposed to come Saturday, and the shifter comes on Sunday.
Oh, it's not too bad then.
It's a week
I'm
out.
thinking like a
Yeah.
couple months or
No.
something. Okay,
That's not bad.
That's not
Yeah.
bad at all.
Be racing the notes. You'll be winning that GT Academy soon.
But
I am
It
curious
works. It
because-
works for GT. It works for Snow Runner, which is a game that I have where you drive like Jeeps and stuff off road.
Does it work for that Hot Wheels game?
I don't think it works for Hot Wheels. I don't know.
that would be that'd
But,
be awesome.
Got
though.
some serious
There's,
Hot Wheels competition.
I forgot what the other one was. There's 3 games that I have that
What about
you
like
can use it for.
MotorStorm or anything like that PlayStation's come out with? I don't know. I mean,
don't know.
I think that's backwards compatible. No,
This
those
only
are
works.
PS3.
This works for PS4 and 5 games,
Okay.
or you can put it on a PC.
So you could get the other GT.
But
GT
the chair's
Sports.
like looks like a race car chair, and it has like a mount in front of you and a mount for the shifter and a mount where the pedals go out in front of you, like you're sitting in a race car.
You
like
can buy you
it's-
some extra monitors so you can have
No,
it
I'm
going all
not
the
doing
way
all
around.
that. I'm just gonna set the chair in front of the TV in the basement.
Yeah.
that
I
ought
mean,
to be
the
big
TV's
enough.
plenty big
Yeah,
enough. Yeah.
But yeah, it was,
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'm looking forward to using it. I
Yeah,
want to
Brandon
Yeah.
wants to come
I
over
want
your
you
house
guys to
now.
use
Well,
it.
because here's the thing.
He's
Yeah.
he wants to come over now.
Sawyer drove this thing at the fairgrounds. They had like a truck driving simulator at
Yeah.
the fairgrounds.
Oh, yeah?
They just had this little 24-inch PC monitor, and they had the wheel mounted to a table, like a folding table. And we sat down, and he was having a blast just driving the
Yes.
semi truck. And so I thought, if I'd spent the money, I don't need it. I wanted it, and he'll have fun with it too.
Well, here's the
kids will
other
play
thing
with
too
it.
is I believe personally, like I played the last GT game I really got into was GT3 A-Spec on the PS2, and again, obviously I've only ever played these games with the controller.
Yeah.
and it's like the first time you sit down and play, it's like it's a driving simulator. You don't play with a controller.
Yeah, that's
same
why
thing as the PC bros getting mad.
That's
like,
kind
you
of
don't
why I
play
quit playing GT7 after it came out.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some other games that came out, but it's just to try to get the licenses and stuff.
That's what
and
I'm saying.
Neil's good, and my brother-in-law is really good at the game, and he grinds. He'll do the same thing 500 times until he gets that gold GT and gets his license or whatever. But it's so much easier from what I've read when you can feel the road and you can feel the wheel is supposed, it has like 40 pounds of torque. So it'll jerk your hands away when you hit the wall,
freaking
and
awesome.
if you hit the little divots in the road, like it vibrates to let
Yeah.
you know you're going. I mean, it's supposed to feel real.
and that's
but
what I mean. Like that to me makes all the difference.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just
We'll
I hate
see.
to say it, but
I went through
I
Amazon
think-
that way. Once I get it all, if
You
it's
could
like
send it back.
I ain't into this, I can send it back. Yeah,
Because I just feel like if you're gonna play a game like that in any kind of capacity of wanting to play it in its full authenticity,
yeah.
I just wouldn't have fun any other way. And that's the reason why I've never bought them. I mean,
Yeah.
after that one, I was like,
Well,
they
supposedly
look beautiful.
You can connect it with
but-
PSVR, which I don't have and don't intend to get.
Right.
But you can hook it with PSVR too. So if you get one of those,
Yeah.
then you bring that over,
Yeah.
and then you can put that on and
man, that
have the
would be
wheel.
amazing.
And when you look left and right, you're looking out the windows of the car.
Yeah,
so
that's insane.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
crazy.
yeah.
That's
Yeah, that would be legit.
Keith, what about you? Something you did not need but you bought.
Well,
anyway.
not a racing rig. So, I mean, most things like the Mac I have was just a. I think the best example probably was when I had gotten my promotion years back at Bob Evans, and I went and bought speakers for the truck because the old ones were going out. And that was just I didn't.
You needed that though.
I guess, but I mean, I didn't really.
Your old ones were going out.
But I didn't need them.
You don't.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, but
I didn't need the Mac, but I bought it. I didn't need the
I'm not
PS5,
saying-
and I bought it.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying you're wrong for picking that, but
Yeah.
I want
I get what you're saying.
something
though.
that was more of a splurge. Like I really should not have bought this, but I was like, I do want it, and I'm going to go ahead and just buy it. I didn't need it at
I
all.
can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been plenty. I
need a new iPad. Like this iPad.
I got that.
8 years old, but
Yeah.
I could have got an iPad instead. But
Yeah.
I wanted a steering wheel.
I mean, most of the systems like the PS4 is a good one because the PS5, I mean, obviously was the upgrade. But when I got the PS4, like I got that. I forget what games I got the Vita with. Like I bought all of that at the same time.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I had the Vita with the PS4.
I
wow.
didn't know you
Yeah,
bought
yeah,
it.
and I
dang.
love. I mean, because it was the first time like I was really the first, I guess, major system I saved up for. Well, I didn't really save up for it and bought myself was the PS3 and the TV, which I got got on some like tax returns and stuff that year, and that was the first system, and I bought myself and my first HD TV. The PS4 I think was the first time I actually like kind of saved up and knew like working and making my own money, that like, and I went all out with like, I got the Vita, I got the PS4, I forget what games I got at the time.
I got Killzone.
Oh, yeah.
Shadowfall. Yeah,
Oh,
was-
Shadowfall.
I
That
got
was
Call
the-
of,
yeah.
I got
Call of-
Killzone 2 with the PS3.
I got
yeah,
Call of Duty
yeah.
Ghost with the PS4, and that game was
Oh,
garbage.
yeah,
It was.
But it was the only thing out like
Yeah.
at the time, like
But,
other than
well, Shadowfall was a launch title.
no,
It was
I never
okay.
played any
You
of the kill zones. So.
Well, that was the weird one because you probably could have played that one separate. It didn't. I mean, it went
Yeah.
along with the others, but it was
um,
a sequel. It wasn't really a
Yeah.
sequel.
Yeah.
But no, I actually agree with you on the PS4. That was the first one I bought with my own money. The other systems I'd received like as gifts at Christmas. But I would even say the splurge one was definitely the Switch. That hands down. Was not planning on buying that. I literally this is so stupid. I don't care. Because obviously I was late to the game. It's the only Nintendo console I've personally ever owned.
Yeah.
My brother had an NES growing up. I obviously played it. But after that, it was a Genesis. And then we were a PlayStation household because that's what my parents bought us. And I was hooked and on board with it. But so I have not had like a personal Nintendo console since then. Well, Tears of the Kingdom's happened to come out. Everybody's talking about it. It's another masterpiece. And of course I know this, and I'd always wanted to play Breath of the Wild, never, got around to ever borrowing yours or asking to see if I could play one or borrow somebody else's. There's the whole Nintendo back catalog with like the e-systems that they have on there. They're starting to re-release certain things in remastered forms. I'm like, this is the one Nintendo console that's really popular. With Tears of the Kingdom coming out, I was like, it's one game I know everybody's going to be playing anyway who does have a Switch, which happens to be a lot of my close inner circle. So I was just like, I literally, the day
just had to get it.
Zelda came out, I was on my way home from work and I was like, I'm not going to do it. Not going to do it. It's too much money. I was like, it's $350 for because of course I'm not going to get a Switch. I'm going to get the OLED Switch.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm looking at the price tag. It's $350. The game is like the first Nintendo
70.
game that's $70.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna play it with just the Joy-Con, so I'd want a Pro controller. That's another $60. I was like, this whole thing's gonna set me back the price of like a $500 console. This is ridiculous. It's like, I'm not gonna do that. That's insane.
But you did.
Came home. I actually had some blinds that I had to replace because Edie here had she jumped on them. Literally, it was on the day before. She jumped up and she had broke the blinds, and I went up to Walmart and I got the blinds.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll just go over there and look. I'm just gonna look at it. Just look at it. So I looked at it through the case and everything. I'm not gonna do it. Went up, bought my blinds, left, got home, installing the blinds. I got the wrong size blinds.
Oh, wow.
I did not mean to do.
You knew it. He knew.
Yeah.
It's the fate
Subconsciously it
you
knew.
make.
Yeah.
I sat there and I lowered the blinds and they got, I had like a 2-inch gap. I'm like, are you freaking serious? And plus, they also I think I have the ones that are darker tones, so they don't let it in as much sunlight. So it's like I even got the wrong kind. I was like, I gotta go back up there. I gotta return them. So I went back up there, and I got the other ones. They had them in. I checked beforehand because I was like, I'm not gonna do this if they don't have them in stock. I'll just wait until they get them in stock and I'll return it later.
Well, heck, you can't even trust that all the time. I
Yeah,
hate
that's
that.
true
You
too.
Get up there.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
not
you
there.
can't. So I found out they said they had them in stock. So I was like, all right, I'll go up and return these and I'll get the others. Go get the others. I'm double checking the package. I'm like, all right, yeah, these are the right ones. I went ahead and got a spare just in case she breaks them again. I've got one all ready to go. And then I was like, I'm just gonna go back over. I'm gonna look at it one more time. Just look at it one more time. And then I just decided, all right, I'm gonna do it. And I splurged and I bought the Switch, I bought the game, and I bought the Pro controller all at once. And it was the stupidest thing. the stupidest thing in recent memory that I bought that I didn't need at all. But I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
You
It was
enjoyed
fun.
I will say, when we got those nice stimulus checks, I didn't need it, but I did buy both Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit in 4K.
There you go.
Because I was like,
Yes.
it's like, if the government's going to give me money to blow, I'm just going to buy Lord of the
gonna
Rings.
blow
and
it.
The
That's
Hobbit.
right.
That's right. Why would I put that towards
That's what I was
anything
like,
else?
If I'm getting a gift card from my mom for a decent amount of money on Amazon, I'm gonna just spend it on something stupid.
There you
That's
go.
what I did.
There you go. And now you get to drive in Splendor and get
We'll
those.
see. We'll see.
You can beat Neil
I
Y'all can race
probably still wouldn't be able to.
online.
Yeah, we could. We never tried that.
Y'all should. That'd be good. I'm curious to see how it works.
Yeah,
That'd be
you and your
interesting.
rig and him with his joystick. Let's see who
We'll
wins.
see.
I do want to bring
Thumbstick.
up an email. We received an email from a viewer,
Oh.
Mr. Jacob Burris. Sent us an email at rmpodcast@redmoonproductions.com, as you can too. So I want to read his email here. It says, "Hello, RM podcasters. Here is a question I have been meaning to ask you for quite some time. Is there a movie that deserved a sequel / prequel that never got one in your opinion? And conversely, is there a sequel / prequel that never should have been made and let the original stand alone by itself?"
Oh, well, there's tons of the second
Yeah, tons
one.
of those.
And he says, "Sincerely, Jacob, I'm listening, Burris."
Yeah.
So
He
let's,
didn't
Bird
say
dog.
remakes. He just specifically said
sequels /
sequels or
prequels.
prequels.
Because I mean, there's plenty you can argue where sequels aren't as good as the original. It's like, oh, that could have been just left alone. Just
Yeah,
saying
I'm
what
gonna
it
have to
is.
stew on this one. We may have to revisit this on another episode because I'm sure
I'm
that
trying to
there's
think of
definitely plenty.
I'm trying to think of. I can think of a few examples, though. I mean, even they like sometimes the sequels have a place in my heart, despite the fact that they're inferior, like Ghostbusters or Ace Ventura. Like those sequels are crazy, but they're still funny for not necessarily the right reasons.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and honestly, especially ones that they've tried to piggyback off, like Dumb and Dumberer.
Yeah.
that was
Oh,
stupid.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they did finally come out with a sequel, but it wasn't good either.
Yeah.
Right.
It did,
That's what I'm
that was
saying.
that's a good movie.
That is a perfect
that did not
example.
need any sequels.
It
or
didn't need a
prequels.
prequel. It didn't need
Yeah.
a sequel. That would have been perfect by itself. Yeah. Well, The Mask. They made a terrible sequel of it that didn't even have Jim Carrey. That would have been better by itself.
A lot of the, even like I'm thinking early like Sandlot 2. Like, come on, don't
Oh
touch
yeah.
the Sandlot.
Well, heck, most of those are straight to
Yeah.
movie. That's
Right.
kind of like Home
India-
Alone. No, I
India,
like
yes.
Home Alone 2 for the most part, but after that, you didn't need them. I'm trying to think of one though that got that.
Got a sequel and didn't need it.
That didn't. Well, we've thought of those. I'm thinking of one that
Oh.
never got a sequel that could have used one. And that one's a little harder. I'd have to really stew on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that. Oh man, I'm just trying to think.
Like
through
I know,
and
like there's some that
brainstorm.
almost got a sequel, and I'm glad they didn't. Like Forrest Gump. Like I'm glad it never did, but they had.
They thought,
they talked about
What?
Well, it has. There's a second book.
it was gonna have the kid in it,
but
Oh,
they talked about
gosh,
doing
yeah, no, that'd
a
be
sequel
awful.
to the movie,
which was what's the kid's name from
Haley
Sixth
Joel
Sense?
Osment.
I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
Yeah.
Haley
Oh,
Joel Osment was
oh.
his
Haley
son.
Joel Osment played his son. But well, there's a book about because that's based off a book, but I mean that's very loosely has really no connection to the books. But I'm trying to think of other ones that actually deserved a sequel. I don't know. Schindler's List.
It's funny you said that because it would make no sense. And earlier I was going to say it would have been awesome if they did a Ten Commandments sequel.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know
You
what
could
you
have
would
shown the
make that
days
about.
wandering in
Actually,
the desert, or
No,
you
I
could have
mean,
made it about.
It shows some of that, I thought.
one
but-
that's
They do,
receiving
you're
a
right.
lot of controversy, but I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with it. Is the resurrection,
yeah.
the sequel to the Passion of the Christ?
True.
Because we
We'll
know
see.
that obviously he's
But it
coming
is
back,
it is getting
you
a
know?
sequel.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see what happens there.
I already know what happens, but
Well,
I don't know. Sometimes it's just a blessing to not have a sequel to things. So
it's like,
I agree,
Wow.
but
I don't know.
how many more of those are there?
what if
I
they
mean,
did a sequel to Saving Private Ryan and
Saving
the old,
Private John.
the old man at the end that goes to the graveyard, he, like, as soon as he leaves the graveyard, World War III breaks out and he's got to fight.
Matt
They
Damon's gotta
draft
fight
him.
again?
Yes. No, that wasn't Matt Damon at
Yes,
the end.
it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
That is not Matt
As
Damon
Saving
at the
Private
end.
Ryan?
Yes, it dissolves.
The old man, yeah, it's Matt Damon.
It's Matt
made up
Damon's
his
character.
Yeah,
Yes,
his
it is,
character.
but he didn't play the old man.
Oh, well,
I'm
no,
saying that
yeah.
old man has
yeah,
to pick up and fight in World War
I'm
III.
talking about the
Yeah.
character.
That old
Yeah,
man's
yeah, yeah.
character's
It
Matt
is
Damon.
Matt Damon.
Okay,
It-
yeah.
it's his
Imagine-
character. It's Private Ryan.
Yeah, that
Right.
old man's
Yeah.
probably dead now. They should
No,
make
I'm
a
just saying that'd
sequel
be
with
great if he just walked out of Arlington and then World
Started-
War III happens and it's like the draft just happened. We're taking everybody and he picks up and goes.
Right.
He's like, I'm doing it for
I
Captain.
can think of a series that deserved a sequel and never got one.
What?
The Dark Crystal.
Yeah. See, I was about to
would say
offend
that.
you earlier and say, see, to me, The Dark Crystal is one of them shows that has a very, very small following.
It does.
And that's
Absolutely.
a show that Netflix probably could have just not done and put that money into something that everybody watches.
But I'm glad they did.
I am,
because it was beautifully
but then
done.
they only gave it one flipping season though.
Yeah.
It's like if you're not gonna do it all and do it right, then don't do it at all.
I can, and necessarily because the movie just wasn't as good as it could have been. But I mean, one that had multiple books that could have had a sequel, Hitchhiker's Guide. I love, but I understand why like it didn't make enough money to keep making movies of the books.
One that didn't need any sequel or prequels, Jaws. Should
Yeah,
have been left
true.
alone.
Yeah, should have
Very
left
true.
it.
The
Well,
original
Jurassic
left alone.
Park.
Yes.
You could have just left
Yes.
that movie alone. It was fine the way it was.
Absolutely. The first is a classic.
It's like
You
Steven
don't need
Spielberg
any of
just
the others.
agree.
shouldn't have sequels to his movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad we didn't get one for Warhorse. There was no need for a
The
sequel.
BFG.
Prequel. War Pony.
War
It
Pony.
was before it became the horse he needed to
It's
be.
like a sequel to Lincoln.
War Cult.
It's like,
That's
what's the
what it's
sequel to
called.
Lincoln going to be
War
about?
Cult.
No, I mean there's going to be plenty that as soon as we end this episode,
Yeah.
we'll
We're
think
proud
of.
of a decent
We're
few right
making
here,
up
though.
some funny
But
ones,
we're
there's
going to revisit this
serious
topic.
ones. Yeah.
I like this. Thank
Yeah.
you, Jacob, for emailing in. It's
Well, and I know Jacob likes Hitchhiker's Guide, so he might agree with that one.
right there at the bottom of your screen. You can do like Jacob did and email us at rmpodcast@redmoonproductions.com. But I don't say it nearly as well as Keith does.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a.
Well, you
have
had
to
said,
cough?
okay, here
Yeah.
we go. RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com.
Every time,
Yeah, that's
every
good.
time, just shiver up my leg. I just
Oh.
get it. Oh god.
Oh no, that was the dog.
Yeah, she's
was the
over
dog.
here. She's
There it is.
There it is.
Don't
There
forget
it
your
is.
towel.
Alrighty, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of the Red Moon Podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in. As always, like, share, subscribe. We appreciate all the love on all of our social media networks right there at the bottom of your screen. Red Moon Book, Red Moon Tweet, Red Moon Pics, and, of course, search for Red Moon Productions on YouTube and Rumble. We are on both platforms. Thank you all so much for tuning in this week, and until next time, the movie we're reviewing next week is, again, we said we're not going to review any of the
Yeah, we're not seeing My Big Fat
helpings
Greek Wedding, so
that come out in theaters.
Okay.
We're doing Wes Anderson's flick from back in the middle of the summer, which was
Asteroid City.
Asteroid City, and he's got another one coming out this year, which I'm very surprised by. Netflix has the
yeah.
rights
I
to
think
that
that's is that the I don't know. That might be the animated one. It might not be. I'd
one. No,
have
it's
to
not
double check.
animated.
Okay,
It's
okay.
live action.
Because he's doing a Roald Dahl novel for them as well.
Oh, okay.
Which he's already done one. Fantastic Mr. Fox
Yeah.
is based
Yeah.
off Roald Dahl. So
But yeah, I'm looking forward. I mean, two Wes Anderson flicks. I typically like his stuff.
Yeah.
Interested to see Asteroid City and what we think of that. That's next week's movie.
yeah,
Until next time, though, I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
and
me,
the Knights
Amy?
of
just me.
Oh.
He's a person.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.